Hello everyone, welcome back to my GH Spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Kai's trap destroys Willow's world, and the ending will shock you. General Hospital fans, buckle up, because what you're about to read will leave your jaw on the floor and your heart in pieces. The sinister scheme that nobody saw coming has officially detonated, and Port Charles will never be the same. The setup nobody suspected. It started with a smile. That was the thing about Kai. He had always been so convincing, so perfectly curated in every expression he wore. Port Charles had let him in, trusted him, laughed with him at the Metro Court bar, and welcomed him into circles that should have stayed closed. And Willow Corinthos, still rebuilding her life after everything she had survived, the cancer, the bone marrow transplant, the terrifying realization of who she truly was, had no reason to be suspicious of a man who looked at her like she mattered. That was exactly how he wanted it. Because Kai had been watching Willow for months, not the way an admirer watches someone, the way a predator marks a target. He had cataloged her routines, her vulnerabilities, the emotional soft spots left behind by illness and family upheaval. He knew when she picked up Wiley and Amelia from school. He knew which coffee she ordered at Kelly's. He knew that on Thursday evenings, when Michael was in meetings and the house felt too quiet, Willow sometimes sat on the terrace alone, staring out at the water, still learning how to simply exist in a life she had almost lost. He knew everything, and he had used every single piece of it to build the most devastating trap General Hospital has ever seen. The lie that launched everything. The first thread of Kai's scheme unraveled during what looked like a completely ordinary week. He had gotten close to Willow under the pretense of a charity initiative, a childhood literacy program that aligned perfectly with Willow's background as a former teacher. It was genius, really. He gave her purpose. He gave her something to pour herself into when the days still felt fragile and uncertain. But behind the warmth and the grant proposals and the community meetings, Kai was building a case, a manufactured, meticulously falsified case that Willow had been misappropriating charitable funds. Fake financial documents, forged signatures, a paper trail so convincing it had even Diane Miller momentarily speechless when she saw it. The plan wasn't just to humiliate Willow. Kai wanted to rip out the roots of everything she had grown since her recovery, her reputation, her relationships, her sense of self-worth. He wanted her to stand in the middle of Port Charles and feel completely, utterly alone. He almost succeeded. The moment Willow's world collapsed. It was a charity gala at the Metro Court. Of course it was, because Port Charles has never met a crisis it couldn't serve with champagne. When Kai made his move, in front of donors, board members, and half the social elite of the city, he presented his findings. He was measured, sorrowful even, performing concern so flawlessly that several people in the room initially believed him. The documents were projected on a massive screen. Willow's name appeared next to figures that made no sense, transactions she had never authorized, accounts she had never touched. The room went silent, and then it erupted. Willow stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, wineglass in hand, while the world she had rebuilt, brick by careful brick, began to shudder. She watched faces she recognized, people who had cheered her recovery, who had sent flowers to the hospital, who had told her she was brave, began to look at her with something new in their eyes. Doubt. She tried to speak. The words wouldn't come. Michael appeared at her side within seconds, jaw tight, hand on her back. But even that familiar anchor felt suddenly distant, because she could see it in his expression too, the split-second flicker before he locked it down. Could this be real? That flicker broke her more than anything Kai had said out loud. The unraveling, and who caught it. Here is where General Hospital does what it does best. It gives you the collapse and then it gives you the resurrection. Because Kai had made one mistake, one single catastrophic mistake that he had convinced himself didn't matter, because who would think to look there? Spinelli. Damian Spinelli, in all his awkward, brilliant, devoted to his people glory, had been quietly running background checks on Kai for weeks, not because anyone asked him to, because something had felt off from the very beginning, and Spinelli had learned, after years in Port Charles, to trust that feeling with his entire complicated heart. What he found was staggering. Kai's real name was not Kai. His credentials were fabricated, and his connection to Willow was not coincidental. It traced back to a bitter, long-buried grudge involving someone from Willow's past, a past she had only begun to fully understand since discovering the truth of her birth. The conspiracy went deeper than a forged document. It went deeper than a personal vendetta. It connected to a network that General Hospital fans are going to be talking about for months. Spinelli handed everything to Dante, who moved quietly and quickly, the way only Dante can. By the time Kai took his bow in that ballroom, certain he had won, the trap had already closed around him instead. The confrontation that changed everything. The moment Willow faced Kai directly, knowing the truth, was one of the most quietly devastating scenes the show has produced in years. She didn't yell. She didn't throw anything. She walked towards him through the parting crowd with a steadiness that surprised even herself, and she looked him in the eye with the kind of calm that only comes from someone who has already survived the unsurvivable. "You picked the wrong woman," she said simply. "I've already been through the worst thing that can happen to a person. You don't scare me." Kai was arrested moments later. The ending that will shock you. But here's the twist that nobody was prepared for. As Dante walked Kai out of the Metro Court, Kai turned back one final time, and in that last moment, he looked past Willow, past Michael, past the entire stunned crowd. He looked directly at one specific person standing near the back of the room. A person that had been there all evening. A person that everyone in Port Charles trusts completely. And he smiled. Not the smile of a defeated man, the smile of someone who knows that the piece he just played was not the final move, that there is a player still on the board that no one has suspected, that whatever just happened in that ballroom was in fact only the beginning. The camera held on that face, the trusted face, the familiar face, just long enough for the realization to bloom. It can't be. Can it? General Hospital airs weekdays. Brace yourselves. Port Charles is about to go through something none of them are ready for, and neither are we. Will Willow ever fully recover from the public betrayal? Who is Kai's mysterious backer? Sound off in the comments below, and don't forget to share this with every GH fan you know, because they need to be prepared.